Okay, hello everyone. This is Professor Lei. Welcome back. So this video is for Chapter 4, Strategy Capacity Management. All right. So you guys probably still remember that in the first three chapters, right? We already talked about the forecasting about market demand, and also we already talked about the inventory management. So in this chapter, we will continue to talk about another very important topic, which is called capacity management. All right. So give you a broad idea about capacity management. Basically, even if you have a very accurate forecasting about market demand, and even if you have a very precise and also very sophisticated inventory management procedure, all right, it doesn't mean that actually your operations management level will be efficient and effective, right? Because you still need very strong capability to handle the operations management level from your own firm perspective, all right? No matter you are providing, you are producing the products or you are providing services to your customers. That's why actually capacity management itself is a very important aspect and also very important dimension in order to improve the overall operations management ability of your firm. Okay, that's why we would talk about this chapter. All right, and this chapter won't be a long chapter; it will be a short chapter, but we will include a few different qualitative and also quantitative methods related to capacity management. All right, let's start to talk about the main idea of this chapter. So if you look at the learning objective, you can clearly see that first of all, before even we talk about different qualitative and quantitative methods within the capacity management, okay, we at least we need to understand what is the capacity management. It is right, what it means, right, from the operations management perspective, all right, and why capacity management is quite important strategically, all right. I just give you a broad sense about the importance of the capacity management, and we will talk about that in detail just in a second. All right. Now, after we have a broad idea about the importance and about the definition of the capacity management, then we start to talk about some different capacity planning. All right, what kind of capacity planning we have, um, in the real businesses. All right, and how to compare different capacity planning, right? That's also very important. Then we will start to introduce one quantitative method, all right? Since, as I just said, normally when we deal with the capacity management, right, when we have when we try to decide on, the capacity planning, normally we will have a few different capacity alternatives, all right? So you have to evaluate the capacity alternatives efficiently and try to pick up the capacity planning that is most appropriate, most effective among different alternatives. Okay, so when we evaluate the capacity alternatives, here we will introduce a new way of evaluation. All right, which is called decision tree techniques. All right, so we will detailed talk about how we basically use the decision tree to evaluate the capacity alternatives. All right, we will plot out a simple graph by in order to illustrating the key points within the capacity alternative you know um, evaluation procedure. All right, and then we will pick up the most effective capacity planning among all alternatives by using this decision tree techniques. Okay, that we will do in this chapter. All right. And then lastly, normally when we talk about a capacity, probably your mind, we may have a few different examples related to the capacity planning in manufacturing, right? But actually, the capacity planning right now is also very prominent, also very important in the service type of the firms, all right? So we will briefly talk about what is the capacity planning services, all right? What is the difference between capacity planning in services and the capacity planning in manufacturing, okay? And what are the key points that we need to understand when we are talking about the capacity planning in services, okay? So these are the main structure of this chapter, all right? It's quite straightforward, and let's start from the beginning, all right? Now, first of all, what is a capacity, okay? So capacity, the definition itself is quite straightforward, all right? it's basically representing the ability to hold, to receive, to store, or even to accommodate, you know, uh, basically the output of your firm. All right. So we know that basically this ability to hold or receive or store or even accommodate the output of your firm, all right, is actually including a few or many different aspects. Okay, this ability basically incorporates, let's say, the equipment, right? You need to have the enough equipment to produce products. Okay, it also includes the facilities, right? It also includes the space or warehouse spaces, warehouse numbers, right? You need to have enough room to basically store your, let's say, inventory, all right? And also you need to have enough people, right? Let's say if we try to, as a firm, if we try to produce specific type of the products, maybe the firm needs some certain type of the skilled laborers in order to maintain, in order to monitor the whole procedure, right? So you have to have the, enough, number of people that can help you to maintain and also to monitor the whole procedure. Otherwise, you cannot produce any product. Or if we go to the service type of the firm, right? If you do not actually have the enough people that can provide this service, okay, even if the customer comes, you are basically losing this opportunity in profit for your firm, right? So that's why here for the capacity, in general we say this is the ability to hold or receive or store or accommodate the output of the product. Of course, for this for the firm, it can be the product, right? It can also be the service, okay? So but for the ability itself, as I said, it actually includes many different aspects. Okay, so it can be the facility capacity, it can be the equipment capacity, it can also be the labor capacity. Okay, all those different things. As long as we need it for the operations management procedure, it can be included within the capacity management. All right, so this just give you a quick sense about the capacity. All right. So as I show here in business, okay, capacity is viewed as the amount of output that a system is capable of achieving over a specific period of time, right? So if you are manufacturing products, manufacturing the type of firm, basically output would be the units produced, right? If you are a service type of the firm, basically your output is the customer served, okay? But no matter, it's in manufacturing type of firm or within the service type of firm, right? The capacity itself normally will include the facility, the equipment, basically the labors. Okay, at least the three are the main categories of the capacity management subjects, basically. All right, and yeah, the capacity management itself really needs to consider both the inputs and outputs. Okay, this actually indicates one key point about capacity management. All right, give you a quick sense about it. All right, so it doesn't. Is this true that the capacity management, the capacity level is higher the better? Is this statement true? Think about this. Okay, actually, this statement is not quite true. Why? Think about this. Why a better or let's say a higher capacity level doesn't indicate that your overall performance level is better? Because the reason is quite simple, all right? Because each time, if you try to improve your capacity level, all right, that will incur a few different type of costs. Okay? For example, if you want to produce, let's say, 1,000 products, let's say in one day, okay, maybe 2 machines is not enough. Maybe you need 5 machines. Okay? Maybe you need 5 machines. But right now, let's say you only have 2 machines. You need to buy those 3 machines, let's say, from other supplier, right? You need to buy them. Okay, so in order to, each time when you try to improve your capacity level, you need to incur some certain cost. Okay, you may also hire some new laborers from outside, right? That's also will incur some cost. Okay, so the key point is that whether it's worthwhile, all right, to improve the capacity management, to improve the capacity level in order to generate more profit for your firm. That's the key point, right? If I increase the capacity level to an extent to a level, sorry, to let's say to amount that is far more above than the real amount needed from the customer, then it's not necessary, right? So that's why here the key point for the capacity management is that you need to have enough the capacity in order to meet the customer needs, but you don't want actually your capacity level to be high, to be much higher than the real market need from the customers. Okay, so there is a trade-off between these two. All right, we will also detail to talk about this just in a second. All right, now let's move to the capacity planning time durations. All right, so here as you can see, easily we separate the capacity planning into three main categories in terms of the time duration. All right, so of course we know that actually within no matter the manufacturing type of the firm or the service type of firm, right? The capacity planning itself is quite, uh, quite frequent, all right, during the whole procedure. But in terms of the time duration, normally we separate into three different type of the three different categories, all right. The first category is called long range capacity planning. This is basically planning for some, the whole point of the big point of the operations management level. Okay, from big point of view. All right, so that's why for this type of capacity planning, the long range capacity planning, normally it will plan for, let's say, next 1 year, next 2 year, or next even 5 years. Okay, so long range capacity planning normally will plan for the next 1 year, at least 1 year or 2 years, 3 years, capacity management scheduling. All right, capacity management scheduling. And then more frequently, all right, when we are dealing with some planes, okay, that is uh, preparing for the next month or next quarter, about our operation management for our farm, then this is corresponding to the capacity planning for the intermediate range. Okay, so the intermediate range capacity planning basically is normally is a monthly or quarterly plans about the capacity building management. Okay, that will cover, let's say, the next few months or next few um, weeks, okay, of the operation management scheduling. All right, so that's basically is corresponding to the intermediate range capacity planning. All right, and then you can even imagine, right? The another type of the capacity planning basically is corresponding to the short range capacity planning. Okay, as I said, basically the capacity planning itself is frequently used. All right, even daily, right? And for this type of the daily capacity planning, of course, it will belong to the short range capacity planning. All right. So and okay, uh, besides the daily capacity planning, right? Let's say if you are talking about the weekly capacity planning or even monthly capacity planning, all right. Let's say 3 weeks or 4 weeks capacity planning. Normally, we will actually view those type of capacity planning as a short range capacity planning. Okay, so in order to differentiate long range, intermediate range, or short range of capacity planning, from the time duration point of view, the key point here is quite simple, right? So the long range capacity planning basically is aiming to fit for our long target, all right? The long target. That's why the long range capacity planning normally it depends on year, right? Basically, the unit of the long range capacity planning is year, right? So we may plan for the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, capacity management. All right. And then in terms of the intermediate range of the capacity planning, since this is type of it's not that specific, okay, still consider the general idea, the general mission of our firm, but it is actually a little bit more specific compared to long range capacity planning. That's why here normally when we're talking about the intermediate range of the capacity planning, all right, we're talking about those monthly or quarterly plans, all right. And then for the most specific type of the capacity planning, we call it short range capacity planning, and always deal with the daily, the weekly, this type of the capacity planning. Okay, so the key point here is quite simple. Now, let's move to strategy capacity planning. Okay, so we know that capacity planning itself, we will talk about a few different techniques with the capacity planning, all right? And we know that capacity planning itself is quite important. As I said at the beginning, right? Even if you have very accurate forecasting about the market demand from from the customers, all right? Even if you can do inventory management perfectly, it doesn't mean that you can maintain, you have the ability to, achieve the target from your firm's capability point of view. All right, that's why here the capacity plan itself is very important and also includes a lot of different aspects. All right, and as I said at the beginning, basically for the capacity planning, normally it will include three main types. All right, um, it doesn't actually limit to these three types, but these three types will be the major types of the capacity planning. Okay, which are facilities, equipment, and labor side. Okay, you can actually very easy to understand these three different types, right? We need the facilities, right? We may probably need enough warehouse space. We need enough, store space in order to basically store those inventory, right, for our firm before the customer will come and pick up those, pick up the products that they want. All right. We also need the equipment. So let's say if you are a manufacturer, if you are manufacturing or products, right, you need enough equipment in order to maintain the capacity, in order to produce those products at a regular speed, right, in order to meet for the customer need, right? So equipment itself is also very important capacity category. All right. Of course, labor is another type, right? Labor needs to be used to basically maintain or monitor the whole procedure, or even manually produce some product, right? So in order to fit for the market demand, we also need those skilled laborers in order to, kind of to make sure that the whole procedure is smoothly. This is will be done in time. All right. So that's why here the labor force is quite important. All right. So in order to deal with the strategy capacity planning, right? Not just the capacity planning. What is the strategy capacity planning? Basically, the strategy capacity planning is trying to find out the overall capacity level of our capital intensive resources in order to best support the firm's long-term strategy. Okay, so basically, we may have different type of quantitative methods, but our final goal is to basically try to, to set up or make a preparation for the capacity management in order to best support the long-term strategy of our firm. Okay, everything is basically trying to supporting our firm's long-term mission. Right, capacity management is one important aspect. Okay, now then you may have the question about basically in order to monitor the capacity planning, in order to monitor the whole capacity procedure, all right, how we can kind of quantify the capacity, the capacity planning during this whole procedure. Okay, actually the operations management people, the experts, these borrow the idea from mathematics, all right, and then they use the term called capacity utilization rate in order to kind of quantify the capacity planning concept, okay, the capacity planning procedure during this whole process, all right. So what is the capacity utilization rate? The capacity utilization rate, okay, conceptually, it just means that this is basically this is just a measure of how close this firm, okay, is currently doing, all right, to its best possible operating level. Okay, so basically, capacity utilization rate is just a ratio. Okay, and this ratio basically reflects, okay, what you are doing right now, what are your performance divided by what is the best performance in terms of the operations management. Okay, that's the key idea of the capacity utilization rate. You can definitely see this equation right here, right? The capacity utilization rate basically equals to the capacity used divided by the best operating level. The capacity used basically is what you are doing right now, what you perform right now in terms of, let's say producing the product or providing services, right? What is the capacity used right now? And the denominator basically is the best operating level, which it basically indicates that okay, what is the optimal operating level for this firm, let's say for the production process or the service process. Okay, so that's why here, okay, simply we can just, if we remember trying to remember the capacity utilization rate, okay, it just equals to what do you perform in terms of capacity, okay, what do you currently perform in terms of capacity divided by what is the best level of the capacity performance in your firm. Okay, that's it. Now, besides the capacity utilization rate, here we also include another two different important concepts. Okay, one is called economies of scale. Another thing is called diseconomies of scale. Okay, but just looking at these two concepts, you can already imagine that the definition above these two are just opposite, right? One is called economies of scale. Another one is called diseconomies of scale. Now, let's start from the economies of scale. What is the economies of scale? The economies of scale basically represent the idea that when your plant going up, okay, when your plant gets bigger, bigger and bigger, or larger, larger, right? And when your volumes, or let's say the products produced from your factory or your firm is becoming, is increasing, 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 then the average cost per unit tends to drop, okay? So think about this intuitively. In real business, okay, let's say at the first time, if you are just a small firm, the setup cost itself will be very high, right? Because you have to buy new equipment, you have to buy, new, let's say the warehouse, all right? You have to recruit new employee in order to, complete this whole production procedure, right? But once the volume increases, once your plants start to become larger and larger, right? You can use those equipment to produce different type of parts, right? Your warehouse can store different type of the products for your firm, right? And more skilled employee then actually produce different type of the products in even simultaneously, right? So you can see that that's why, okay, in the real business, when plants start to increase, not increase, become larger, and when the volume increases for this firm, the average cost will start to drop. Okay, that's actually quite intuitive, but it doesn't mean that, okay, when your plant or when your firm become larger and larger, or when your volume increases, okay, the cost will always drop. Okay, it doesn't mean that the cost will always drop. That's not true. That's not quite true. Okay, because imagine, okay, at the first time we can say that when the firm size become larger, then the average cost per unit will tend to drop. Okay, but if let's say your factory already increased to a size that cannot fit the current market demand from the customer, what you need to do? Simply, you have to, let's say, update your equipment. You may need to buy some new equipment, right? You may need to rent some new house. You may need to, recruit some new employee in order to fit for the, let's say, a larger volume of the product or some new type of product, right? So basically, the shape, okay, of the average cost per unit, okay, normally will decrease at the first time when the firm size increases. But then after a point, it will start to increase again. Okay, normally we call this point is called a saturated point. We call it saturated point. Okay, this is economics concept. All right, called saturated points. But after basically it's after the point is saturated, and then we move to the next level. Okay, the average cost per unit will start to increase. That's why here we have the opposite concept, which is called diseconomies of scale. Right? You can see that that's why here we say at some point, normally this point basically is just saturate the point. At some point, the plane will start, when it continue to become larger and larger, all right, when the volume continue to increase, the average cost per unit will start to increase instead of decrease anymore. All right. So that's the comparison between economies of scale and the diseconomy of scale. That's it. All right. Very simple, but actually very important. Now, let's look at some other capacity planning concepts. Okay. The next capacity planning concept is called capacity focus. Okay. What is a capacity focus? Okay. The definition here is quite straightforward. So basically, the capacity focus is the idea that a production facility works best when it's concentrated on a limited set of the production objectives. Okay, so basically, the capacity management uh, needs to be focused. Okay, it doesn't mean that you can you can improve the capacity from all of the aspects. That is the best strategy. No, that's not the best strategy. Okay, so we need to focus on the capacity, focus on improving the capacity aspect that is more useful, that is more critical. Okay, that is more critical. So that's why here when we try to improve the capacity, okay, we need to first understand which aspect is the most important, or let's say is most urgent for us to improve. Okay, because always the resource, okay, such as the money, right, or the effort is limited for your firm, right? You have to put all your effort, all your money, all your resources into the most useful, most valuable aspect, all right? And then if you still have some other resource, of course, you can improve some other capacity management aspect, all right? But here, okay, we have to have the priority when we try to improve the capacity level. All right, so that's why here, this is the key point of the competitive focus. Okay, it's basically conveying that okay, when we are trying to improve our capacity level or capacity management, it's better to concentrate on some specific objectives in terms of or instead of improving all of different aspects. That's not the best case. All right, so this is about the capacity focus. Next one is called capacity flexibility. Okay, so since this is related to flexibility, you can even imagine that, right? Basically, if we can rapidly increase or decrease production level, okay, that'd be good because you see, we know that we do the forecasting of the market demand, right? We know that the market demand can be fluctuated during this procedure, right? Sometimes the market demand is good, sometimes the market demand is not good, right? So if we can, very rapidly or very smoothly change our capacity flexibility in order to fit for the market demand, that can actually help us to save a lot of money. Okay, so flexibility in terms of the capacity management is very, very important and crucial. All right, that's why here we say that when we talk about the capacity flexibility, it represents the ability to rapidly increase or decrease product levels. Okay, and it also includes or it also incorporates the ability to shift rapidly from one product to another product. All right, rapidly from one service to another service. Right. So basically, when we talk about capacity flexibility, it is not only just talking about the ability of increasing or decreasing the volume. It also incorporates the ability of shifting your production line from producing one product to producing another product, okay, or providing one type of service to another type of service. Okay, that's called capacity flexibility. Quite important. All right. Now, yeah, here we say that flexibility it can comes from, you know, uh, planning. Comes from the plant, processes, workers, or from strategies. Okay, different aspects of the flexibility is good, in terms of the overall capacity management performance. Okay, but going back to this idea, the capacity focus, right? Normally, since the resource itself is limited, normally we will focus on improving the aspect that is most useful or valuable. But if we still have enough resources, of course we need to improve some other, aspects in order to improve the capacity flexibility. All right, now, um, yeah, as we already see, basically for the capacity management, we have three different general types, right? The facilities, the equipment, and the labor or workforce, right? So here, when we talk about the capacity flexibility, right, we also separate into three general types, which are called flexible plants, flexible processes, and flexible workers. Right. What are the flexible plants? Let me give you a quick example, right? So let's say for our firm, we are currently we are using this plant to store for product A. All right. But recently we found out that okay, product B has a very good selling amount. Okay. Then we say okay, then probably we will increase the production level of the product B instead of product A. Okay. Then flexible plans will be very easily or smoothly, to store product B instead of product A. Okay, that's called flexible plan. That's just a quick example. That's why here we say flexible plans are those plans that have the ability to quickly adapt to change. Okay, even zero change over time is actually the goal. Okay, of course, in reality, the zero change over time is ideal. It's a little bit idealistic, but the firm is always trying to kind of making the flexible plans, like the Amazon, like those B2B, B2C, those type of the firms, right? They are always trying to kind of make the more flexible plans that will always sell, always save some of those monies. All right. Now, the next one is called flexible processes. Okay, the flexible processes itself is also very intuitive, right? So let's say we have some equipment. Okay, if this equipment can produce, product, no matter product A, product B, or product C, that'll be good, right? Because let's say, continue from the last example, right? If in this mass we produce more product A because the market demand for product A in this month is good. All right. But let's say we have the forecast. All right. And find out, okay, in the next month, product A, the sentiment will not be that good. But instead, the product B will be good. Okay. So uh, in order to have enough, inventory in order to meet all of the customer needs for product B, then basically, we really want to, produce more product B just in just in this month in order to prepare for next month, right? So a flexible process or flexible equipment will allow you to do that. Otherwise, if this equipment can only produce product A, or no, for some extent, all right, and can but will only produce product B at a little amount, then you cannot, suddenly change the whole production line from product A to product B. You will lose some profit opportunity, right? So that's why the flexible process itself is also quite important. Okay, so you see that everything right here is the key point here is trying to fit for the market demand. Okay, market demand in order to basically trying to basically fit for the fluctuated situation during the whole operations management process. All right, and more flexible always is better. All right, so you see that here. I give you some examples, right? So basically, a flexible manufacturing system, some simple and easy setup equipment, or yeah, we also talk about the concept which is economies of scale. All right. So if the manufacturing system or equipment itself is very easy to transform, all right, that would be a very flexible process. That's actually will be good signal for the firm. All right. Also flexible workers. You can even imagine, right? So let's say we are still by using that example, right? Right now we're producing product A, and then we found out that okay, next week or next month the selling amount for the product B will increase. Okay, then let's say for this product it's not just using equipment. It still needs the monitoring procedure by workers. All right, then you probably will assign more workers to produce product B. Okay, but those workers can accomplish this assignment only if they can produce B as well, right? If let's say if one type of worker they can only produce A, but another type of worker can only produce B, then when we have this fluctuation of the selling amount from product A to product B, you cannot change it very smoothly, right? So the only thing that can be helpful is that, in terms of workers, then basically if these workers have the multiple skills, okay, if this worker can produce A and can also produce B, that would be good. That would be a flexible procedure, right? So that's why here, in terms of the flexible workers, you may need multiple skills. You may need the ability to switch from one kind of task to another quickly. All right. So you see that we know the capacity management actually have, let's say, at least three general types, right? And in more specifically, in terms of the capacity flexibility, right, we are trying to improve the flexibility in all these three different aspects, right? The flexible plans, flexible process, and flexible workers. Okay, that's it. Now, uh, yeah, when we try to change the capacity, it's not only increasing the capacity. Sometimes we may decrease the capacity. All right, but during the whole procedure, no matter you increase the capacity level or decrease the capacity level, you have to consider a few different uh, elements or consider some factors before you decide on changing the capacity management level. All right. So here I just listed four out of different type of the capacity management consideration factors. All right, but of course all these four will be most important factors that we need to consider. All right. First of all, we need to maintain a system balance. Okay. So we know that actually in the whole operations management, you know, the system. All right. Basically, we have different elements. All right, and those elements need to be fit for each other. Okay. So basically, um, the capacity level for different aspects or from different discipline, from different departments, all right, they need to be fit for each other. That's why here I say that uh, basically a similar capacity at each operation are desired. All right. Let's say if the capacity for one aspect, for one discipline, is much better than the other discipline, okay, it's not a good signal in terms of the overall capacity management level, right? We are trying to build up the capacity management that the basically the capacity level from different aspects are similar. That's a good signal for the firm in terms of the capacity management. All right. So that's why here we are trying to manage the bottleneck operations. Okay. What means by bottleneck operations? Okay. Normally, your operations level is not determined by the best aspect, the best dimension, the best discipline of your overall operations management system. Okay. But instead, actually, your operating level is decided by the worst or the lowest, okay, element or discipline of your operations management system. That's why here, actually, the bottleneck, the lowest level, is the basically the element that you really need to care about. You really need to improve. Okay, because if you can improve the worst element, the worst discipline, that will actually helpful for the whole operating system, right? That's actually very intuitive. Now, the next one is called frequency of capacity additions. Okay, so let's say sometime in let's say in a few months or even in a few years, okay, this firm will tend to kind of upgrade the overall level of the capacity management system. All right, but each time, okay, when you try to upgrade the cost, okay, the cost itself will be very different in terms of the frequency time period. Okay, if you upgrade your capacity management very frequently, okay, then each time the money that you incur will be lower. Okay, will be lower. All right, but instead, if let's say if you only upgrade your capacity management, okay, let's say for a few years, then each time when you try to upgrade, the cost that you will incur will be much much higher. Okay, but it doesn't mean that okay upgrading the whole capacity um, management system okay is more frequent the better. No, that's not the case. Okay, it doesn't mean that basically if we upgrade the capacity management very frequently, that would be a good signal. No, Basically, we also need to set up an appropriate level of the upgrading the capacity management. Okay, the reason is quite simple. So if you try to upgrade your capacity management very frequently, all right, each time when you try to upgrade, you at least you need some setup cost, all right. So you need some setup cost. So each time you incur some setup cost, and if you upgrade very frequently, okay, the setup cost due to those several times already will become a huge amount. Okay, but if you do not actually upgrade very frequently, if you actually upgrade the your capacity management system very slowly, let's say 5 years, 6 years, or 7 years, okay, then each time if you try to upgrade your uh, capacity management, you are moving to the other side, other extreme side, because actually the cost that you will incur at this time will be very costly, will be very high. Okay, so that's why it's not the case that too frequent is bad. No, it's also not the case that the too infrequent is good. No, so both those two cases or those two extreme cases are not good. Okay, we are trying to find a proper level of upgrading, not too fast, not too slow. Okay, that's the best way. Now, external source of the capacity. So external sources of the capacity, like outsourcing or sharing some capacity, from some factories. Actually, this type of way is more and more popular. Okay, in the current, no matter manufacturing type of firm or service type of firm. Okay, so um, yeah, they are actually more and more firms are trying to use the outsource of the way in order to improve their capacity management. Okay, but they also have some drawback. Okay, so if you're trying to use the outsourcing in order to improve your capacity management, you are losing some monitoring, you are losing some control. Okay, because you're outsourcing, so you may not actually 100% sure about the outsourcing procedure. So the monitoring procedure itself will be you know in some extent, okay, will be lower, okay, in terms of the firm's performance. So that's why here, when we try to improve the capacity management, all right, the outsourcing way is the good way that you can consider, okay, but it's not always the good way, okay. It also depends on the specific context of your firm, all right. Now, about decreasing capacity, all right. So as I said, it's not always the case that you will increase the capacity. Sometimes you may even decrease the capacity, right? Let give you a quick example. If this product, let's say the product doesn't actually, the selling amount itself is not good, then you may decide, as a firm, may decide to, to decrease the amount of the production for this certain product. You may shut down this production line, right? So sometimes we may consider decrease the capacity, right? That actually will also save some money in terms of firm's performance. And some of the reduction will be temporary. Sometimes the reduction will be permanent. It all depends on the real cases, the real reason why you decrease the capacity. If it's just a fluctuation, then sometimes the decreasing the capacity is basically a temporary reduction. Okay, but let's say if this product is already out of date, right? You already see that not many customers will buy this product anymore. Then you may consider permanently reduce the capacity for certain products. All right. So that's the reason behind. All right. And yeah. So this is just a quick illustration about the frequent and infrequent capacity expansion. Okay, so as I just said, right, if you frequently, let's say, expand your capacity, okay, expand your capacity, it looks like this gray triangle, right? So you see that each time when you move up, okay, then the height of moving up, moving up step is a little bit, shorter, is a little bit lower, all right? So each time, the effort that you need to put into the expansion procedure will be smaller. Okay, that's actually good, right? But you see that since let's say here within this big triangle there are three triangles, right? So each time when you try to expand your capacity, you need some setup costs. So the setup cost will be higher, okay, when you frequently increase your capacity. But on the other hand, if you do not frequently expand your capacity, all right, let's say you only increase your capacity at a relatively long time period, all right, then each time when you try to increase your capacity, when you try to expand your capacity, right, then this step will be a large step, right? And you may put a lot of effort in order to increase to the next level, okay? So that's why here, each time when you try to increase the capacity, the cost, okay, that will incur during the whole procedure will be much higher, okay, compared to the frequent capacity expansion procedure. But we're not saying that, either frequent or infrequent is better. Okay, first of all, it depends on the specific context, depends on the firm strategy. All right, but normally, neither frequent nor infrequent capacity expansion would be good. Okay, we would like to basically set up the proper level that's in the middle between too frequent or too infrequent. That would be the best way. All right, now, yeah, before we jump to the quantitative methods, all right. Here, just give you a quick sense about the whole operation management system procedure, all right. From forecasting to to manage the whole procedure and then do the specific capacity planning. Okay, very simple. Here you see. Since our final goal is always trying to fit for the customer need, no matter for the products or for the services, all right? So first of all, we use the forecasting to predict the sales for our individual products, okay? So that's the first step. We try to use the forecasting to predict the sales, okay? All right, and then in order to fit for that specific forecast, okay, of our predict sales, then we try to calculate labor and equipment requirements in order to meet the forecast. Okay, that's the second step. All right. Now, after we got the requirements about our labor or equipment or facility in order to meet forecast, then we come to the most specific capacity planning procedure, right? So we know that in order to meet for the customer forecast, right? In order to meet the forecast, the requirement is like this, right? In terms of labor equipment, all right. Then, in order to maintain that capacity level, should we need to, buy some new equipment, all right? Or should we need to shut down some equipment? Should we need to recruit some new labor, or should we lay off, some current laborers in order to save some money? Okay, that's the whole procedure about the capacity planning. All right. So you see, these are the three steps that we do sequentially. Okay, starting from forecasting, set up look at the whole performance, and then we project the labor and equipment availability over this planning horizon. All right. So that will be the whole procedure during this process. All right. So in the next video, we will start to talk about different quantitative methods related to capacity management. See you soon, guys.